The retired Army colonel walked into the luxury dealership, wearing his old military jacket. The sales manager looked him up and down with disdain before asking him to leave. The next morning, when military vehicles escorted a 4-star general, everyone stood speechless. Elite Motors gleamed under the morning light, its glass walls showcasing exotic vehicles most people only dreamed of owning. Porsche, Bentley, Aston Martin, Ferrari, each more expensive than the last. James Tucker, 70, stepped through the doors, his weathered military jacket worn proudly over a simple white shirt and khaki pants. The Purple Heart pin on his lapel was small, but significant, a modest reminder of sacrifices made decades ago. His posture remained military straight, despite his age, and his eyes carried the quiet confidence that comes from facing life's harshest realities on battlefields far from home. What wasn't apparent from his modest appearance was that James had dedicated his post-military life to founding and running the Veterans Reintegration Foundation, an organization that had helped thousands of returning soldiers overcome PTSD and transition to civilian life. Years before meeting his now husband, he had built the foundation from nothing, pouring his military pension and combat experience into creating real change. As he entered the showroom, his eyes immediately fell on a sleek midnight blue sports car, perfect for Captain Miller, his former subordinate who had recently completed rehabilitation after losing a leg in Afghanistan. Miller had always dreamed of owning a luxury car, and after surviving his injuries, James wanted to give him something truly special. He could easily afford it. His foundation's success and personal investments had made him comfortable in his own right, though few knew that. Across the showroom, Marcus Reed adjusted his blue tie and straightened his designer suit jacket. As sales manager, he prided himself on being able to spot serious buyers instantly. At the sight of James in his dated military jacket and practical shoes, he smirked and nodded to his colleagues. This would be amusing. Good morning. James smiled at a young salesman named Ryan who approached him. Welcome to Elite Motors. I'm Ryan. Is there something specific you're interested in today? Before James could respond, Marcus smoothly intercepted. I'll handle this, Ryan, he said, then turned to James with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Looking for directions, sir? And just like that, James's day at the dealership began, a day that would change perspectives for everyone involved. Actually, James replied pleasantly, I'm interested in that midnight blue sports car. He pointed to the $285,000 vehicle displayed on the elevated platform. Marcus Reed's smile tightened. He'd seen this before. People wandering into daydream about cars they could never afford. With end-of-month quotas looming and 3 serious buyers expected that afternoon, he had no time for fantasies. That's the limited edition Azure Coupe. Only 15 were made this year, he said, emphasizing each word as if speaking to a child. Perhaps I could direct you to our pre-owned division? They're in a separate building about 3 blocks east. James noticed how Marcus's eyes darted over his military jacket, lingering on his worn dress shoes. He was accustomed to such judgments. Most people had no idea he deliberately chose this way of living, finding freedom and simplicity despite having access to substantial means. I'd really like to learn more about this one, he persisted politely. Is it possible to see the interior? Marcus's expression soured. Behind him, 2 salesmen exchanged knowing glances. The Azure is by appointment only, he lied smoothly. Our serious clients typically schedule private viewings. Just then, a couple dressed in designer clothing entered. Marcus's demeanor transformed instantly. Please excuse me, he said to James without actually looking at him. Why don't you take a brochure? Ryan can help you with that. He strode toward the couple, arms outstretched in welcome. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington, wonderful to see you again. Ryan, the younger salesman, approached James with an apologetic smile. He couldn't be more than 25, and his suit seemed a size too large. I'm sorry about that, sir, he said quietly. Would you like me to tell you about the Azure? I would. Thank you, James replied. As Ryan enthusiastically described the vehicle's features, James noticed Marcus leading the well-dressed couple directly to the Azure. He opened the door with flourish, inviting Mrs. Harrington to sit inside, the same car he claimed was appointment only. That's quite all right, James assured the now uncomfortable Ryan. I understand how these things work. Across the showroom, Marcus was performing his well-rehearsed sales routine. This particular model has a waiting list of 8 months, but I've set aside one for special clients. Mrs. Harrington ran her hand along the leather interior. It's exquisite, but I'm not sure about the color. We could certainly discuss custom options, Marcus assured her. James approached quietly, standing just within earshot. Excuse me, he said. I was hoping to inquire about purchasing this model. Marcus's face reddened. As I mentioned earlier, this vehicle is being shown to these customers, he said with barely contained irritation. Perhaps you could come back another time, or as I suggested, check our pre-owned options. The couple looked uncomfortably between Marcus and James. I'm specifically interested in this car, James stated calmly. For my fellow veteran who lost his leg in Afghanistan. Marcus stepped away from the Harringtons, lowering his voice. Look, I understand people like to dream, but this is a place of business. That vehicle will cost more than most homes. Now, I've been patient, but you're interrupting a legitimate sale. Several nearby customers had stopped to watch the uncomfortable exchange. Ryan hovered anxiously at the periphery. I'm prepared to make a cash purchase today, James said, maintaining his composure. That was when Marcus's professional veneer completely cracked. He laughed, a short, harsh sound that echoed across the showroom floor. Several heads turned. A cash purchase? Really? His voice was louder now, designed to humiliate. This isn't a yard sale. We're talking about $250,000. People who can afford these cars don't dress like. He gestured dismissively at James's military jacket. James felt his cheeks flush, not from embarrassment, but from a slow-building anger. Not for himself. He'd experienced such treatment before, but for anyone who had ever been judged by their appearance, especially his fellow veterans who returned home only to be dismissed by civilians who couldn't understand their sacrifices. I believe my money is as good as anyone else's, he said quietly. Marcus stepped closer, towering over him. Let me be clear, he said, no longer bothering to hide his disdain. You are wasting my time and embarrassing yourself. Either make an appointment for a serious discussion dressed appropriately, or please leave the premises. The showroom had gone silent. The Harringtons had stepped away from the car, visibly uncomfortable. Is there a problem here? A newer voice joined the conversation. The dealership's owner, Richard Mason, attracted by the commotion. The military-grade security system at the Hayes Tucker residence announced James's arrival as he pulled into the driveway of their modest but elegant colonial home outside the city. Despite their means, both men had preferred understated living, a value instilled through decades of military service. General William Hayes, 68, looked up from his desk when James entered a study, immediately setting aside the defense report he'd been reviewing. 4 stars didn't diminish his ability to read his husband's expressions with precision. Something was wrong. What happened? He asked, moving around the desk to meet him. 30 years together, from the battlefields of Desert Storm to their marriage after retirement, had forged an unbreakable bond between them. James sank into a leather chair, the morning's events washing over him. It was educational, he said with a wry smile that didn't reach his eyes. He recounted the experience of the dealership, the condescension, the humiliation, the blatant disrespect for his military background. As he spoke, William's expression darkened, but he remained silent, giving James space to process. It's not about me, James concluded. I have the privilege of walking away knowing the truth, but how many veterans get treated that way every day? Young men and women who gave everything for this country, judged by people who sacrificed nothing? William nodded thoughtfully. In their years together, this was what had always moved him most about James. His consistent concern for others, even when he himself had been wronged. So what would you like to do about it? He asked finally. Part of me wants to do nothing, James admitted, just buy Miller's gift elsewhere. But then I think about that young salesman, Ryan, who treated me with respect regardless of how I was dressed. And I think about all the veterans who faced that kind of judgment without having any recourse. He looked directly at William. These people need to understand that worth isn't determined by appearance. But I don't want vengeance. I want awareness. William nodded slowly, a plan forming. I think I might have an idea that accomplishes both. The following morning arrived with picture-perfect weather. Marcus Reed entered Elite Motors with a confident stride, straightening his signature blue tie. Yesterday's incident with the old veteran had become an amusing anecdote he'd shared over drinks with colleagues. Another delusional dreamer thinking he belonged in the world of luxury. The showroom gleamed under carefully positioned lights, exotic cars arranged strategically to maximize their allure. Marcus had just finished a morning staff meeting, emphasizing the importance of qualifying customers properly. Remember, he'd instructed the sales team, our time is valuable. We cater to a specific clientele. It's not elitism, it's efficiency. Ryan, the young salesman, had remained quiet during the meeting, his discomfort evident. Marcus made a mental note to have a word with him about proper customer assessment. At precisely 10:17 a.m., the distinctive sound of multiple vehicles in formation drew attention outside, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a procession unlike anything they'd ever seen approach the dealership. Leading the convoy was a polished black Suburban with government plates, followed by two military Humvees. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Is that Richard Mason, the owner, had emerged from his office, drawn by the sudden silence. Military, Marcus confirmed, already moving toward the entrance, confusion evident on his face. From the lead vehicle emerged two uniformed soldiers who took positions at attention. Then, from the middle Suburban, stepped a tall figure in full-dress uniform adorned with multiple rows of service medals and 4 stars on each shoulder, the insignia of a full general. Marcus's salesman instincts kicked into overdrive. This was beyond a good prospect. This was a photo opportunity at minimum, possibly a celebrity client. "Good morning, sir," Marcus called out, intercepting the distinguished visitor before any other salesperson could approach. Marcus Reed, sales manager. "It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today." The general regarded Marcus with an unreadable expression, then offered a polite nod that conveyed neither warmth nor familiarity. "General William Hayes," he replied simply, his voice carrying the natural authority of someone accustomed to commanding thousands. "United States Army." Marcus's mind raced. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but he couldn't immediately place it. Regardless, the military escort spoke volumes about the man's importance. "General Hayes, it's truly an honor. What brings you to our humble establishment today? Perhaps I could show you our newest arrivals? We just received a limited edition." Hayes raised a hand slightly, halting Marcus's practice pitch. "Actually, I'm here about a specific vehicle. The Azure Coupe Midnight Blue." Marcus's smile broadened. "Excellent choice, sir. One of only 15 produced this year. I'd be delighted to show you. It's actually right over." "I know where it is," Hayes interrupted smoothly. "My husband was here yesterday expressing interest in it." Marcus's customer service smile remained fixed, though confusion flickered in his eyes. "Your husband? I don't recall. Perhaps one of my colleagues assisted him." General Hayes's expression cooled noticeably. "No, Mr. Reed, you assisted him. Or rather, you refused to assist him. James Tucker. He was wearing his old army jacket with a purple heart pin. You suggested he might be more comfortable looking at pre-owned cars." The blood drained from Marcus's face as realization dawned. Behind him, he heard a small gasp from Ryan, who had been hovering nearby. "General, Marcus stammered, his usual smooth delivery abandoning him. "There must be some misunderstanding. We welcome all customers here." By now, Richard Mason had approached, sensing the situation developing. "Is everything all right, Marcus?" General Hayes turned his attention to the owner. "Mr. Mason, I presume?" "Richard Mason. Yes. Welcome to Elite Motors." "Thank you. I was just explaining to Mr. Reed that my husband visited yesterday, interested in purchasing the Azure Coupe as a gift for a wounded veteran who served under his command. He was, however, treated in a manner that I find deeply troubling." Richard's expression shifted rapidly from welcoming to concerned. I'm sorry to hear that. I believe I was briefly involved in conversation, but I wasn't aware of all the details." Hayes nodded thoughtfully, The details include your sales manager here suggesting that people like him don't belong in an establishment like this, based solely on his casual attire and military jacket. A jacket, I might add, that he wore while earning the Purple Heart defending this country. By now, a small crowd had gathered, other salespeople, support staff, and even a few early customers. The showroom had gone completely silent. General Hayes, Marcus began, desperation creeping into his voice. If there was any misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Ryan suddenly spoke up. All eyes turned to the young salesman, who looked surprised at his own courage. Colonel Tucker was treated poorly. He was polite and specific about his interest in the Azure, and he was dismissed repeatedly based on his appearance. Marcus shot Ryan a withering look, but the damage was done. Hayes turned back to Richard Mason. You know, it's interesting. My husband founded and runs a Veterans Reintegration Foundation. It's been his life's work since retiring from active duty. They've helped over 15,000 veterans reintegrate into civilian life, raised millions for PTSD treatment programs and prosthetics for wounded warriors. He paused, letting this sink in. James chooses to dress simply because he believes in living modestly despite our means. He finds it keeps him connected to the veterans he helps. It's one of the countless reasons I love him. 1 month later, the Veterans Reintegration Foundation Benefit Gala transformed the downtown convention center into a celebration of service and resilience. Veterans of various ages and their families mingle with donors, medical professionals, and supporters. Near the entrance, Marcus Reed, dressed not in his usual sales attire but in a simple volunteer's polo shirt, directed guests and assisted a young Army specialist with prosthetic leg. The past month had changed him profoundly. His volunteer work at the foundation had started as an obligation, the price of professional survival, but something unexpected had happened as he witnessed the challenges these veterans faced daily and the dignity with which they met them. Across the room, James Tucker, elegant in his formal military dress blues adorned with service medals, approached him. "How are you finding the experience, Marcus?" he asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. "Humbling," he finally answered. "And necessary." James nodded. "Captain Miller seems to have taken a liking to you," he observed, referring to the young veteran with the prosthetic leg. "He's teaching me about adaptive driving," Marcus admitted. "Apparently, I have a lot to learn about true mobility." Marcus's expression grew serious. "Colonel Tucker, I know I've apologized formally, but I need to say it directly. I'm truly sorry for how I treated you. There's no excuse." "You're right, there isn't," James agreed, but without malice. "The question is what you've learned. That worth isn't determined by appearance, rank, or possessions," he said thoughtfully, "and that everyone deserves respect until they prove otherwise, not the other way around." "Good lessons," James acknowledged. "We all make judgments based on appearances, don't we?" But as Marcus Reed discovered, looking beyond the surface can reveal extraordinary people and life-changing opportunities. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of story lovers. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever misjudged someone based on their appearance, or been misjudged yourself? Have you encountered veterans whose service wasn't properly respected? Your experiences might inspire others. And remember, respect for those who serve shouldn't depend on their appearance, rank, or